As fires burn out from yesterday, a wandering mare's found a better way. For just as night seems most dark, the sunrise comes to warm our hearts.
Through the ashes of war, through the blood and the gore, a man who wants more than this world that is torn. A group that cannot just be stopped or forgot will rise to overcome all odds. And with every new day, through the parts that we play, as we push fear away and remember the ways of a man who was kind and whose words will remind. Do better.
Fallout Equestria, Dead Tree, Chapter 6, Breadcrumb Trail. You have left a trail of breadcrumbs, clues which will lead you to the place where your purpose and passion have already met and are simply waiting for you to find them. Jacob Nordby. Any questions would have to wait. I ended up with Buddy dropping me off after getting our weapons fixed, armor worked on, ammo restocked, and traveling supplies loaded. Now I was sitting on the floor in a ramshackle excuse for a hotel. I suppose ramshackle by the standards of what was before the mega spells. The interior certainly matched the exterior, much to my dismay. The room looked like it was cobbled together from heaps of scrap. Even the bed was assembled from 4 different colored metals with a repeatedly repaired mattress on it. The mattress needed to be hosed down with bleach and a pressure wash, then dipped into industrial-strength turpentine for good measure. In the end, weariness in my body took over, and since I doubted there was anything better here, I reluctantly slid up onto the bed and wished for sheets. The sound of the springs made me wince, though. I scrunched my face in pain and then got off the bed to get under it instead, still unable to really get to sleep. It was late afternoon, too early to sleep. The sun had started to set, but only the darkening light told me this. The sun was still hidden behind the clouds. My new friends began to trickle into Hearthfire's fireplace, the flophouse I now found myself inside of. Buddy showed me exactly the things I would want to buy with our newfound caps just before we got in. We modified and upgraded my shotgun to be easier to use as well as hold more rounds. We took my stable barding, light leather duster, and the security helmet to a blacksmith for modifications to become better armor. While Buddy kept helping with the shopping, he just kept repeating to me,
I gotta make sure you're prepared, darling.
Or his other phrase,
Want to make sure we got enough protection for a sweet filly.
It was odd to say the least, and I was surprised at how thorough he was. Before he dropped me off at the flophouse, I felt like I'd been through a montage from Wandering Sunrise, Sweet Little Filly, to Wandering Sunrise, Bringer of Death. The only piece that had been replaced outright was my 10mm pistol with a .357 revolver like alguacil's. We had it modified for some pony my size, as well as some more cushy leather applied to the handle so I could take the recoil. My Stable-Tec barding felt more like the armored coat of Mad Mare Maxie than a simple jumpsuit when I got it back. I gave a small smile at having found a good friend in Buddy if he was paying so much attention to detail for my sake. I could still recognize my own reflection in the helmet as I rode my hoof over the black back of it. The duster I had salvaged had been given to a tailor for almost 3 hours to have reinforced steel plating woven into key places. They also put hard leather plates on the shoulders and collar so that it came all the way up to my chin. The .357 felt a lot heavier than the salvaged 10mm, and I wondered how much more it would kick when I fired it. This was the last piece Buddy gave me.
It's a good old piece you got there, little filly. If you have to reload and ain't got time, pull it out and use that instead.
I understood and put the gun in a holster on the back of my pip-buck we had made specifically for it. A sunrise had been painted on the helmet where the left ear holder was. It had been made with oil-based pre-war paint, a beautiful bright yellow sun surrounded by orange and red hues, a sight that would be hard to miss. On the other side there was an angel. It looked like Celestia with a halo and all-white hair, holding a black shotgun just like the one holstered against my saddlebags. I didn't know where I'd gotten the idea, but having done it twice now, I thought it fit me somehow.
Do I have a guardian angel? If I do, the image of Celestia flying overhead with a shotgun protecting me is quite stoic and silly. Did the goddesses ever fire a weapon? Why would they? They were alicorns. It's not like they needed a gun. They could blast a pony into ashes with their magic.
I tossed and turned, trying to find a comfortable spot on the floor to no avail. Grumbling about the lack of comfort, I brought up my pip-buck. I hoped for some work to do if I couldn't sleep yet. There was still that list of encrypted files waiting for me. All of them were from last week, and my friends had confirmed it had been 182 years.
These dates are right. Deal with it, Sunrise. Calm yourself and deal with it. You only get going because you keep going forward. Mom, what I wouldn't give for you to be here.
I kept tinkering with the encryption until the words were green blurs instead of letters. Then my eyes stared at the password options I hadn't tried. I flopped back onto the mattress and regretted it immediately as an old rusty spring slammed into my naked flank right on the cutie mark.
Oh, for Celestia's sake, give me a break.
I rubbed at my bruised flank and groaned.
I hate beds so much.
I resumed my scrolling through various combinations of letters and numbers. One literally said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There is no conceivable way that someone would use that as a password. This was like something an idiot would use on his luggage.
I shrugged. I had 3 more guesses before I'd have to back out of the encryption process and start over for the 12th time.
Access granted.
What? Who played this cruel joke on me? What idiot would possibly make their password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Or are they truly a devious genius? This is something scary. Either the pony who made these was a complete buffoon or a chess master. I would never use such a stupid password. Wait, who was playing with my pip-buck, and how long did it take to put these files on it?
None of these thoughts made me the slightest bit relieved or happy. Suddenly, the map function on the pip-buck opened up and marked several locations all around Equestria. No matter how I looked or drew lines between them, they had no rhyme or reason. Just random markers, some in the middle of nowhere. No details about them, no names on them, no information in the file, just coordinates. Every one of them was improperly marked. I had to adjust them to make the pip-buck pick up the coordinates properly. Even beyond lacking any proper details, the z-axis on these markers was completely missing. They could have been anything from cloud cities of Pegasi to the deepest sand dog caves ever made. One of them even registered that it was on the moon.
Really? The moon? No pony had ever gotten there, right? Except Luna, maybe.
I looked up and out the window. The clouds blocked any hope of seeing the moon in the early evening sky. A slow smile crossed my face at how silly it would be to make it to the moon.
Then again, how awesome would it be to set hoof on it? Imagine if it were actually made of cheese.
A deep and rumbling snoring noise broke my thoughts. With a sigh, I walked over to the snorer's cot. Buddy must have come in at some point while I was working on decryption. Apparently he was happy to have any old bed, and he snored harder than a power drill. Me, the bed I chose was covered in stains. All the cleaners on it made it impossible to tell what had been what. There was virtually not a spot on the bed that was its original color.
This is the world now, Sunrise. It sucks, right? Go to sleep. We can talk to them about the coordinates in the morning.
It wasn't just the stains. Something about the sound of springs made me flinch. I wasn't going to sleep in that bed, not even if the last spell power matrix battery in all of Equestria was at stake. I took to checking through my backpack and found a bedroll, though sleeping bag was a better term.
At least it's clean. Way too clean to be from the wasteland.
A big Stable-Tec symbol with the number 43 was emblazoned in the center. It was that odd Stable-Tec blue with bright yellow lines on the zipper. That night, I decided to sleep under the bed frame out of sight of the rest of the room. I crawled into the sleeping bag and held it tight to my nose. It smelled like my mother.
Why does this smell like Mom? Who cares? It's something to hold on to.
I curled into the inner folds as tight as I could and drifted off, remembering my mom. T-minus 12 months, 3 days until Megaspell Day.
Sunrise! 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 Come on, dear, we have work to do if you are going to attend the school gala tonight.
Mom called to me. I walked out of my room into the hallway, pushing the door with a dull thud against the wall. I hung my head, ashamed to look at her. My mane looked awful. The colts at school had taken their fun to it. They had brought all sorts of tools of hair torture and clearly planned this in advance. There were 2 straight razor cuts on my right ear, gum wrapped into my mane fragments. What was worse were the choppy safety scissor cuts where my bangs should be, and 6 different spray paints used as hair dye all over my head. One streak of obnoxious purple ran from my forehead to my shoulder. I heard Shadow Window gasp when she saw her filly. I looked up with eyes full of tears and shook my head without saying a word.
Oh, Sunrise. Oh, I didn't know it was...
There was a pause, and then she gave a huff of determination.
Well, we have to make the best of it.
Mom declared with the finality of a mother's executive decision. Her horn glowed, picking up a brush, a pair of hair scissors, a bottle of white dye, and a set of combs. I looked up on my mother and the warm glow off her face through my tears. Her horn was giving the illumination of hope and love that a wounded soldier would beg for on the battlefield. I wish I had inherited her horn or Dad's wings.
At least with magic, I would have had that sort of special talent, right? Or with wings, I could have outrun my bullies. Nope, had to be like both my grandmas. Full-on earth pony.
I felt the brush, and that made me relax. My shoulders let down, but then recoiled in horror as I saw the hairs from my mane falling down beside me. I started to back away in dread that my mother was joining in with the bullies from school. There wasn't much left to cut unless you completely destroyed my mane.
Hey, don't move, Sunrise.
She put a hoof against my head to make me stay still. Shadow Window resumed working until finally there was probably more of my mane on the floor than still on my head. The hallway between our kitchen and my room would need a cleaning to get all the pieces up. There was a burst of hairspray sending me into a coughing fit.
Great. She's just humoring me. I probably look...
The mirror did not show the pony I expected. I looked wonderful. My hair had been restyled into a tight pixie cut, not the butchering it had been moments before. I was almost 100% sure that I would be considered a carpet-munching mare with that hairstyle.
What? Stereotypes are a thing for a reason.
Even with my mare-loving thoughts, it still looked wonderful. Short, thick spikes on my restructured bangs combined with each color of paint acting as highlights, all shaped into a solid straight mohawk all the way down my neck to my shoulders.
Mom, why? I don't have a date, and...
I started before a firm black hoof was right on my lips.
No, dear, you don't. But you know what? We can't always get what we want.
She paused, and her horn floated out several sets of clothes from my closet. Several dresses and styled blouses with skirts hung in the air as she moved one against my chest, then the next one. Her smile still glowed, and her eyes lit up like bright spheres you looked for in the darkness of a storm.
You have to keep moving forward, regardless of how bad it gets. And I'll be damned by Cerberus himself, with Luna's blessing, no less. If my filly is going to let some bullies make it where we can't have a good time on her special night, ho-ho!
She took out one particularly new dress and measured it up against my white coat.
How lucid is this dream? I know it's a dream, right? Can I... Nope, my hoof isn't moving. Is this a memory orb? Has my mind started dreaming memory orbs? Is that how much I've been exposed to them while they kept us in stasis? Is that why I feel like looking through a host inside a recollector?
Mom, are you sure?
I asked as the dress was presented to me. It was the most beautiful piece I'd ever seen, at least of any dress that was meant for me. 3 rubies adorned it as a brooch, which caught my eye immediately. Scanning over the garment, a cascade of silks from the darkest midnight blue into navy along the body to sweet baby powder at the hem where my hooves would poke out. I worked my way into it. 1 ruby rested on each of my shoulders, and a larger center one positioned itself against my chest right between my 2 lungs. My mother held up the mirror to her daughter, and I couldn't possibly believe that it was me looking back at myself. The mane appeared alien and natural at the same time. It was as though it belonged to some pony else, a lot tougher and more cocky than the filly Sunrise. The dress I knew was mine. I'd worn it that night, but now seeing the memory so clear and perfect, I was at a loss for words.
Sunrise. Never lose your soft heart, dear. And never let some pony keep you from moving forward. I won't have you as a daughter if you let that happen.
She took a breath as her horn expertly hemmed the dress just right and finished fitting it to my flanks. The adjustment made me realize there was a slit cut that showed off my flanks. My blank flanks. I looked at the slit, then back up my mother with big, "Please don't make me do this" eyes. Shadow reached up and lifted my chin until our eyes were forced to catch each other's.
You should strive to be better than those who wish to keep you down. When any pony bucks you down, you don't just buck back harder.
Her hoof stroked my face with love and care.
You buck back at the problem they have created and show them the mercy of the twin sisters.
Her horn glowed and grabbed the makeup kit from the bathroom.
Now, let's make those colts that picked on you regret it, because they want to ask you to dance. Oh.
As soon as the first makeup brush hit me, I snapped out of the memory I was in and back into the waking world.
Sunrise, get up. Come on, it was hard enough to find you. Don't make this hard too.
Alguacil's voice sounded like talons on a chalkboard compared to Mom's.
No, please, no. Damn it! I want to be with Mom. Let me be with my mom for just a few minutes longer.
Get up now!
He pulled the sleeping bag hard enough that my hoof hit the bed frame I had curled under.
Ow! Alguacil, you...
Sunrise, let's not use that language till it's warranted.
The voice from the stasis pod said.
Wait, whose voice is that?
My eyes snapped open as I let the pain win and looked up at the griffin's face. If it was a horrific sight when the sombrero was on, it was so much worse with his hat off, especially first thing in the morning. Between missing the exposed eye socket and heavy scarring all over his face, I really didn't know if breakfast would be my first stop. There were jagged tracks of scar tissue, deep cuts from knives, a few bullet holes, and I was convinced his eye had been shot out of his head. He was just too stubborn to die of shock. From this angle, I could clearly see the exit wound of a hollow point round out of one side of his head. Whoever had done the surgery work on him afterward had clearly had amazing skill to ensure he was patched up nearly this well, even if they were missing a piece or two.
Never mind that thought. I think putting Celestia anywhere near you would be a disservice to the goddesses.
The first words grumbled from my mouth on day 2 of being outside the stable, at least for the days I remembered since meeting my companions. The griffin gave me a confused, indignant look.
Is he gonna hit me now?
Then his beak cracked a smile.
Good. At least I know you're facing reality. Now get up. We need to eat and decide where we're going. I don't keep the law by staying somewhere safe. You can either get up and get moving, or I can leave you behind.
Alguacil declared and walked away from my sleeping bag. I groaned. I wanted to throw something at him.
Can't I even get a day to relax? Recover? Alguacil, I swear, when I understand griffins...
Wait, he was the only griffin I'd ever met. I guess maybe this is how they all act.
I let my thoughts go and focused on getting up and getting my sleeping bag rolled up and put back with my saddlebags so all my things were in one nice neat pile. Everything was still there. No one else in the room of 10 beds had bothered them.
Note to self, in order to feel less paranoid, get a private room next time, even if it costs more.
I left the flop house and stepped into the dull, cloudy dawn. I wished I could see my namesake, but it was still night and starting to be slightly brighter than midday usually was.
At least it's brighter in the day.
I took an apple from my pack and held my pip-buck up against it. No clicks. At least they were clean and looked tasty. Expecting the sweetness of an apple, I took a bite and instead I got a combination of sweet fruit and bitter radioactive aftertaste.
Oh, come on! Can you not make apples taste bad, Wasteland? This was not the golden sweet taste I was hoping for.
With a very bittersweet and unsatisfying breakfast finished, I found myself milling about inside the flop house with Buddy, Nyota, Alguacil, Chifundo, and Corners. They were debating what to do and where to go.
Well, there's some raiders around Corn Sparrow. Apparently there've been a lot more of them. And they've been getting more aggressive.
Buddy said while I played with the pit bug to make sure the coordinates were right.
Yes, but that does not give us a direction. Our party is not suited for such a confection.
Chifundo replied flatly.
It is the best idea we seem to have at the moment, at least until we have a clearer way.
Nyota's monotone delivered the facts to us.
And it is my job to clear out the lawless.
Alguacil pointed out as I felt his shadow over my shoulder. Then his talon took hold of my pit bug and he looked at the map I had been working on.
What's this?
I looked up from my work and all eyes were suddenly on the very small green filly with the computer on her foreleg.
I decoded one of those files on my pit bug last night after the rest of you had gotten to sleep. It contained these coordinates.
I pointed to the screen on my foreleg where everyone could see the map of Equestria and the blinking markers.
This one here.
I pointed the tip of my hoof to one of the flashing points and then adjusted a knob to zoom in.
It is the closest, near Las Pegasus and Applewood. Between them, actually.
I looked up at the others. I was a little excited, but I didn't know what to expect. I had never been to one of those cities of dreams and stars. Corners walked up and slipped a hoof out from under her box, which I now realized she had reinforced with metal we had salvaged from the armors in the cave.
Then that is where we go,
she declared from inside the box. I shrugged and jerked my foreleg back from Alguacil.
I decoded the oldest file first and got the coordinates from there. They look like they have no relation to each other, but there has to be something here. Maybe it will give us a clue why we are in that cave together. And hopefully something there will help me decode the other files.
I replied to Corners.
It's also the only clue we have.
Alguacil looked at me, then the pit bug, and seemed to be lost in thought.
Get to work on decoding the rest, but you're right. It gives us a direction to begin, unless one of y'all has a better idea.
Chifundo and Nyota both looked at each other and exchanged something silent between them. I couldn't tell if it was body language or some way zebras had of communicating without talking. Maybe zebras are secretly telepathic. I really don't know.
I know what it is I must do, but for now I will stay with the little one. If she says go, I go.
Nyota said, in a way that didn't put any of us at ease one bit.
If that is provided, I must say. I agree, and we take no delay.
Chifundo declared in his sing-song way.
Oh great, now I'm doing it. Are all zebras this strange? Every time Nyota talks, I feel a piece of my skin crawl a little bit. And Chifundo somehow gets into my head this sudden need to either create a poem or sing. Zebras are so different. At least the ones that had worked in Dad's shop didn't talk in half riddles or make me want to keep an extra eye on them.
Alguacil grimaced at us.
That is a very long walk. We're looking at a few days. There may be a town on the way, and we can clear out raiders, slavers, and bandits on the road, so I can do my job.
He really doesn't like civilization, does he? Can I even call this town made out of pieces of sky carousels and husks civilization? Had Alguacil found so many monsters that at this point he himself had become a monster? I guess keeping a monster on your side isn't a bad thing.
Buddy stared back from under his hat at us. All eyes were on him now, thankfully. Even if everyone had a hoof, talon, or paw still on my pit bug, I was glad their eyes were on Buddy instead of me. Alguacil's one eye had a way of always judging every pony he stared at, and I didn't like being the object of his stare. We all waited for Buddy to speak in the meantime while he mulled it over with a rolling of his lips and tongue.
Well, since y'all seem to have a plan to get her, I ain't got nothing better to do. I'm sure I can come up with some caps off of the salvage, especially around this little filly.
Buddy smirked and picked me off the ground. While I was comically small compared to him, I had not realized I could be lifted up like a newborn foal. I was suddenly reminded that having hooves off the ground made me a very unhappy earth pony. I squirmed and panicked to get down, trying to break his grasp, all to no avail considering how much stronger he was than me.
Besides, I gotta make sure this little missy here gets looked after till she's used to the wasteland.
He started to lower me back to the ground, and I stopped my flailing when my rear hooves touched the ground. The big sand dog pointed his index claws in opposite directions while crossing his arms over his chest.
Which way?
I looked at Eyes Forward Sparkle and tagged the coordinates marked in my pip-buck. A bright green dot appeared in my vision. My tail passed me my helmet. After the repainted black security helmet was secure, my tail lowered the visor. The EFS responded by displaying across the hardened bullet glass and made all the pieces of the HUD easier to read. The dot gave me a clear direction and I pointed, so our adventure was to begin again.
New trait discovered. Bay-splosions. Your world is just a little more explodey. Double the AoE of all explosions within your sensory range, regardless of who set it off. Watch out! Everything is made of explodium around you.
But not from how far. Our journey's so ruthless, I still bear the scars. And what matters ain't that the world saw its end, but what kind of life we will spend.
I'm trying to be better, but still miss the mark. And each time I save you, I'm left in the dark. No,
when you're in trouble, I'll be by your side. My love for you ain't gonna hide. But inside the fire keeps burning.
Still death is calling. The rivers run dry 'neath a blackened out sky, and all the dead trees are falling. Creatures we face will see equal judgment, our mercy or grace. Decision is needed for those who survive of whether you'll be left alive.
And all bloody work for a hope that we hold of past golden age and its story still told. And what sacred virtues we're able to heed to bring back to those who are in need.
The future